Two guys in the dark. I started narrating stories because after sending every single story that I wrote to all the big names and a few lesser known names, I didn't get any response. No thanks for sending. No, your story sucks. Nothing at all. I won't mention who they are, but most of them should know who I'm talking about. One big name did happen to read a short story that I wrote, which I'm thankful for. It wasn't my best. This went on for a while. After months of frustration, I finally realized that it wasn't going to happen, so I decided to just narrate my own stories, create a channel, pick a name, post them myself. How hard could it be? So I did it. My stories were good at least, so I thought. To my surprise, a few people actually liked them. After a while, I was asked if I could narrate their stories. They would send them to me via email, which I gave them, and I would narrate their stories. They started the ball rolling. I was talking to a coworker one day about narrating stories for fun. They suggested that I check out an app called Reddit. Search the short scary stories and the no sleep section. They said that they had posted a few stories on there, thought that it would be perfect for me. So I did. Created an account, started my search. There I found all kinds of amazing stories. I contacted some of the people through comments and personal messages, asking for permission to read their stories. Most of them were cool with it, although I did get a few rejections. I kept on asking, though. Things were going great. I was reading amazing stories. People were liking them, and I even earned enough karma on Reddit to start my own community. I decided to use it for people to send stories to, and people actually did. All the while, I still searched other communities for stories to read. That was until I found that one story. I should have known by their username that it wasn't a good idea. I'm not going to mention the name of it, because it still sends chills up my spine just thinking about it. It was about 1 a.m. Insomnia had set in. I was sitting at my dining room table searching Reddit when I found that story. It just blew me away. I had it all. Drama, suspense, emotion, everything you could think of. I contacted the author through personal message asking for permission, except for some reason, I signed it using my real name, not my stage name. That was a big mistake. I realized what I did, but it was too late. I had already sent it. Anyway, seconds went by, and I received a reply. This is what I was waiting for. I was thinking that they were just waiting for someone to read one of their stories, just like I was. I replied, "Thank you," and planned to go on with my night, until I received my own personal message from the author. "My name is Susan. Do you want to talk?" I figured, what the hell? I'm not doing anything else. What could it hurt? So I sent back, "Sure." After about 30 minutes of conversation, I had found out that she was female. We were both into Stephen King. We both liked horror stories. We both lived in the United States, but only a few states away from each other. I was getting tired. I let her know, so we ended the conversation, both saying goodnight to each other. I was lying in bed, almost asleep, when I got a message from her, saying that I'm glad to have someone like you to talk to. I miss that. I shrugged it off and went to sleep. A couple of days had went by. I came home from work and found a note on my door. It said, "Hi, sorry that I missed you. Love, Susan." What the hell? Love? I only talked to her for like half an hour. How'd she even get my address? What the fuck did I get myself into? I took the note off the door. I quickly went inside, locked the doors, called the police. I told them this story. They said that there was nothing they could do until an actual crime was committed. Yeah, that's definitely reassuring. I hung up from them and tried to do my normal routine. Make coffee, get changed, drink the coffee, so on. I couldn't get the note out of my mind. The doorbell had rang. I froze, and I slowly walked to the window to see who it was. It was a woman. She was probably about 5.5 feet tall, tattered, dirty clothing, long stringy brown hair. It looked like she hadn't bathed in over a month. I knew that it was Susan. I had to end this now, before it turned ugly. And ugly it had turned. I opened up the door and said, "Look, Susan, I don't know what you think is going on, but I just wanted to read your story. That's it. I'm sorry if you thought that there was something more, but there's really not. Please go home." I shut the door and then walked back into the house. She screamed like a wild woman. She started pounding on the door and screaming that I love you. I love you. I ran to the phone to dial 911. A rock or brick or something came crashing through the front window. I turned and saw that crazy woman climbing into my house, screaming, "Read my story! Read my story!" The shards of glass from the broken window cutting her as she climbed in. Blood was on the window and on the floor. Dialing 911, they finally answered. "The crazy bitch is in." She charged and slammed right into me, knocking me over the desk and falling to the floor herself. She was kicking and screaming like a lunatic. I got up. The phone was still in my hand and smashed it hard against her temple as she was getting up. Now, I don't hit women, but that woman deserved it. Her eyes had rolled into the back of her head. The screaming stopped, and she fell to the floor, unconscious. I heard sirens outside. I guess the 911 operator had heard it all. The cops came, took my statement. They made me stay outside while the paramedics tended to Susan, if that's even her real name. The cops had put her in cuffs. The paramedics took her to the ambulance. On her way out, she looked at me and laughingly said, "I'll be waiting." They put her inside and then left. The cops finished up and did the same. I was left with the messed up door, a broken window, blood all over the place, my broken desk, and a broken phone, all over a story. I'm done. I had moved out that night. I left all my stuff behind. I slept in my car until payday, and then rented a room off of a coworker. I never narrated another story after that. So just in case any of my subscribers are reading this, or even hearing this, and wondered whatever happened to me, now you know. This is why I stopped narrating stories on YouTube. I'm a 13-year-old female. It was only a few months ago when this had happened. I was on a hockey trip with the rest of my family. I don't play, but my siblings do. I'm generally a quiet person. I have social anxiety and don't react well to situations with people complimenting me or anything like that. My family had just pulled into a rest stop that I was already familiar with. I was walking in to go get a drink with my little sister, who happens to be 9 years old. When she ran ahead of me, I didn't care much, but I wished that she had stayed by my side, because not even a few seconds later, a white man who looked to be in his mid-40s honked his horn at me. I instantly jumped back because I was right next to his car, which was a red 4-door sedan. He started telling me how pretty I was and how I should hop into their car. Being an unsocial person, I walked away with no reply. I ran inside to go meet up with my little sister. I'm pretty close with her, so I laughed about what had just happened, and I told her about everything. We didn't think much of it, and left as soon as we came. The man made crude gestures to me as I walked back to my other siblings. I happen to have 2 sisters and 1 brother. My brother is pretty intimidating and 16 years old, while my other sister is 15 and not very intimidating at all. They both play hockey and are way stronger than me. My family drove off and started going to the hotel where we were staying at. It was an hour or 2 away, so after a while, we stopped at yet another rest stop so me and my siblings could stretch. I had already forgotten about the encounter with the man when I noticed a car pull in. It was red, 4-door. I didn't mind any attention to it at first, until I walked into the restroom area. A man had followed me in and just sat on the bench like he was waiting for someone. Wanting to avoid eye contact, or even talking to him, I pulled my little sister next to me and just spoke about video games with her. I waited until she was done to walk out with her, but my mom had walked in and told me to go right back to the car. I always avoid talking to strangers. I get really nervous if someone even says hi to me, so I avoid any contact with people. As I was walking back out, the man had followed me. He was around the same height as me. I'm about 5'8". He walked next to me and whispered in my ear something along the lines of, "You would look good tied to my bed." I don't completely remember exactly what he said. I just tensed up and ran for my car, jumping into the back seat. I was scared now, but because I was an idiot, I only texted my friend about it. She told me it was some random creep, and to not worry about it. I did as she said, and forgot all about it. I thought that was that for the encounters. Once my family got to our hotel, we only checked in and went to the ice rink. We took longer than we thought, so we had to be at their rink immediately. I began to forget the man again. It was the start of the second period, and I was sitting outside the actual rink with my sister. I don't bother watching, at least not until now. My sister and I were playing some multiplayer game when a man had sat right next to me and asked what I was playing. I got extremely uncomfortable and moved away only to have him move closer. He began asking if I had a boyfriend, and I just pointed to my ear just to pretend that I was deaf. It was pretty stupid looking back, but I had a plan if he believed me. I don't know much sign language, but I know enough to pass a lie. Sadly, he didn't buy it and continued to ask me. I stayed silent, ignoring him until he put his cold hand on my thigh. I was wearing leggings, so I felt how cold his hand was. I jumped at it, and he in turn squeezed it. In the game my sister and I were playing, we could message things. So I quickly looked at her and wrote in the chat of our game, "Ask me to go to the bathroom with you." She looked at me and realized what was going on. She walked over to me and told me that she had to go to the bathroom. We hid in that bathroom for a while until the game was over. I didn't see him until the next game was going, which was the very next day. My sister had a fever that day, so I was volunteered to stay with her at our hotel. I only really did it to avoid the man again. It was a few minutes later. I heard a knock at the door. At this time, my little sister was downstairs getting breakfast from the hotel. I assumed that it was her and opened up the door. I hated what I saw instead of my sister. It was the same man as before. I was horrified. His face had a terrible grin on it. Before he could say anything, I slammed the door and decided that it was a good time to call the police. I was crying at that point as I sat against the door and called the police. They arrived shortly after, and the man was arrested. It turns out he had been taking pictures of me this whole trip. He had been following me this whole time, even when I was swimming with my siblings. From then on, I don't ever walk alone. I hate it. I just really fucking hope to never see him again. It was the second scariest thing in my life. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.